Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you are not. I am EDJ and we are in the final part of the Otto von Bismarck series by Extra History, and this is where this is where Germany comes. And yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see this. So we saw the Franco-Prussian War, the defeat and capture of Napoleon the Third. And I believe they have this moment at Versailles, and which is just the ultimate flex of a defeated enemy, right? You've defeated them, you move into one of their most historic places, and you just, hey, we're a new unified just complete flex. Otto von Bismarck basically unified all of Germany with his just genius, cunning ideas. Amazing. Very amazing man. He definitely lives up to the hype that I've heard so much about him.
Prussian army reigned victorious. 250,000 men had surrendered to them, and the French emperor was their prisoner. It was time to make peace. There was only one problem. You see, capturing an emperor sounds great. It sounds like the thing that happens when you win. But when the emperor is the state, and he's also your prisoner, who do you negotiate with? This was the problem Bismarck was facing. Too much winning. He wanted to make peace, but they had won so much that he couldn't figure out who to make peace with. So when the news reached Paris on September 2nd, 1870, one of the remaining generals and a few French statesmen declared themselves the government, which they cleverly named the Government of National Defense. Of course, the emperor was technically still alive and hadn't ever abdicated, which was a complication. Also, they hadn't been elected, so where did their legitimacy come from? Well, everybody basically agreed nowhere. This slapdash government maintained some semblance of control by delivering strong speeches about how France wouldn't give up an inch of territory, to which Bismarck responded, Alsace and Lorraine, please. Negotiations with this pseudo-government quickly fell apart. Moltke was pretty stoked. This meant he would get to march on Paris after all. As the Prussians approached the French capital, the Government of National Defense recalled all of France's armed forces from their colonies, their holdings in Italy, and summoned them to the defense of the homeland. Soon they had a formidable force at Paris, at least on paper, and they began to dig in. But Moltke simply surrounded the capital and laid siege to it. One of the main members of the Government of National Defense pieced out via air balloon to see if he could raise an army in Loire. Everybody else stayed put, defenses raised, just waiting for Moltke to try to storm the city. Moltke had no intention of doing something so blindingly wasteful, though. Instead, he planned to simply let Paris starve and wait them out while the rest of Germany's forces patrolled France, crushing whatever other armies the French put in the field. Bismarck argued that they should shell the city, something that Moltke and the general staff felt was inhumane, against the rules of war, and probably ineffective anyway. But as time wore on, Wilhelm got impatient with the rising costs of this siege and ordered Moltke to listen to Bismarck. There is much debate about how much effect the guns had, and whether it was the shelling or just the starvation that led to surrender, but at last, the Government of National Defense signed an armistice. During these peace negotiations, the representative of the Government of National Defense pleaded with Bismarck, saying that if Paris acceded to all demands, it would cause a socialist revolution. Bismarck coolly replied, "Then I recommend provoking an uprising now while you still have an army to crush it." Outplayed at every turn, the Government of National Defense gave Bismarck basically everything he wanted. He got Alsace and Lorraine with nearly 1,700 villages and towns, adding 1.5 million new souls to the German Empire. He got 5 billion francs in gold to be paid as indemnity, and Prussian troops would be staying in France until that was paid, just in case some real French government came along and tried to go back on their deal. Oh, and also, Bismarck got a German empire. More specifically, he forced the French to officially acknowledge Wilhelm as Kaiser, or Emperor, of Germany, the last real step in the unification process. Back when the war first started, the southern German states, the last holdouts, had sort of been absorbed into this growing entity which Bismarck had been putting together. During the war, citizens of Baden or Bavaria or Württemberg had fought side by side with Prussians. It had given them a sense of unity and brotherhood that eclipsed their regional differences, made them an army of Germans fighting together. So now, as the war wound to a close, after experiencing such a great victory through cooperation, these states all voted to become part of something greater, something called the German Empire. Finally, in a scene full of spectacle and drama, on January 18, 1871, the leading military commanders declared Wilhelm Kaiser in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. And so the glory of war and the pomp and circumstance of imperial dignity played out. Now all that was left was creating a constitution, which Bismarck expedited by convincing the newly formed German Empire to simply adopt most of northern Germany's previous constitution. But with one interesting proviso. All ministries were under the office of Chancellor, and the Chancellor could propose legislation or bring things to debate in any of the parliamentary houses. But the chancellorship itself was granted at the direct pleasure of the king. No other body could remove a chancellor or appoint one. Coincidentally, Bismarck just so happened to be the Chancellor of Germany. But
good play, Bismarck. He always has a plan, doesn't he? So yes, again, he has unified Germany, probably his biggest achievement, you know. And, you know, it's interesting, guys. I mean, I mentioned this before, but I feel safe in mentioning this again for anyone new who stumbles across this video. I have a connection to Germany. The sister of my grandfather moved there and basically started the German wing of our family. So, you know, I have European relatives who visit once in a while here. And so, yeah, I kind of have like this weird like attachment to Germany. You know, this weird connection. So it's cool kind of seeing this and, you know, kind of learning more about, you know, Germany. I mean, most infamously, when you hear about Germany, you hear about them in the world wars. But man, we're just a complete force to be reckoned with, you know?
even with this broad power over his newly formed empire, even now that he was finally ascendant in Germany and Europe at large, Bismarck now faced a challenge that he had never truly had to deal with before: the challenge of governing. Most of Bismarck's life had been focused on unification, on expansion, and on foreign policy. He'd never before really had to focus on questions of domestic policy for Germany. A new Germany, one sewn together out of disparate people of different backgrounds and different faiths. And here perhaps would be his greatest challenge, because now he had to ensure the continued meteoric rise of this new German empire, while at the same time fending off the jealousies of Europe's existing great powers, so that they didn't band together and crush this fledgling nation. This Herculean effort would take him the rest of his life, and for all of its difficulties, would be the triumph of his foreign policy and his political philosophy of revolutionary conservatism. But if Bismarck had one great failing, one true tragedy to his life, it would be that he could not envision a world without Bismarck, at least not until it was far too late. And so all of this effort, all of this work he did to ensure a strong but peaceful future for Germany would wash away in other leaders' hands, feeding directly into the looming catastrophes of 1914. But that's a story for another time. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, we do know about, the world wars. After World War I, Germany was heavily punished, to put it nicely, and, after World War II, I guess that's probably... I do believe that, basically Otto von Bismarck placed himself so important to Germany's success and rise that, there was no one after him who put in as much work, at least to my knowledge. And, after he got removed by, I think, Kaiser Wilhelm II, it's like, but there's no one worthy to replace him, he became too essential. to where things were the same without him, and I guess he needed someone competent to follow him, I guess, like a successor, if you would. And you know, yeah, it goes to kind of show you the importance of, you can be great, but you also have to make room for someone else to be great to follow you if you want things to keep going. You know, kind of like a good succession is necessary, I think. And yeah, but this was a very interesting series to learn about. I really liked it. Like learning about Bismarck and his many plans, you know, and the man was just gifted, you know. He was a genius through and through, and just a very amazing figure that I'm very happy to have learned more about. And yes, I will stop the video here, and I guess I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.